Well, welcome to Cabin Creek Homestead. Welcome back to all the the old viewers.
It's my birthday!
It's Christine's birthday, so I, being the loving
Happy
husband,
birthday to me!
being the loving husband that I am, if you can hear me over that, I told her for her birthday she could go to Creekside and
I can buy myself flowers!
and buy some flowers to landscape
With my husband's wallet!
in front of the barn right here. So I'll let her explain it better. She knows all about it, but she's being annoying.
Happy birthday to me! Happy birthday to me! Happy birthday!
Are you done?
Welcome to Cabin Creek Homestead. Hold on, I'm still out of breath from my enthusiastic song to myself. Welcome to Cabin Creek Homestead. We have quite a few new viewers after you saw me on Jenny's channel, which thank you so much for having me on your channel, Jenny. So for all of you that are new here, this is our beautiful barn. This came on the property when we moved here, and this barn has a really special story. Shortly after we moved in, I found a little horseshoe that was hung up on the wall in the garage, and it was from Tweetsie Railroad, and it had a date on it that was kind of a long time ago, and it had a lady's name on it. I hunted her down and said, I think you may have moved and left a very special treasure here. And she was like, oh my goodness, I thought I had lost it in the move. I want to come get it. It was a childhood Tweetsie horseshoe of hers. Anyway, that was the builder of the house. So her and her husband built this house, built this barn, and we did not know it at the time, but this barn is an exact replica of a barn in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. In a couple of weeks, we want to do a full tour of this barn and just show you how beautiful it is, not only on the outside, but on the inside as well. And it's got a really pretty loft. So be looking for that video. We used it as a petting zoo. We put some stalls in it, and we let our minis up here and our goats, as well as the chickens, and there's a very large coop in there. But on the outside, what you don't see is that our driveway comes straight here, and this is the first thing you see. Before you see the dance floor, before you see our home, you're gonna see this beautiful, majestic barn. And there's a couple of problems in this area that I want to fix with a little bit of landscaping. If you're like me, landscaping can solve 99% of your problems. Having a bad day? Go get you a hydrangea. So in this area, because the roof does shed a ton of water, during a heavy rainfall, even with a ton of grass growing here, we get a ton of backsplash of red clay. So as you can see, this wood has become discolored because it is just coated in red clay. If we landscape, we will add some root structure here for some structural integrity in the soil, but we'll also be putting some mulch on top of it. We're gonna use pine straw as a mulch in this area. The reason, the short answer for that is because of chickens. Chickens love to scratch through things. They do not destroy pine straw nearly as much as they displace mulch. I've had entire beds of mulch completely scratched away to oblivion. So pine straw it is. But with a little bit of landscaping and a little bit of mulch to cover up, we're gonna stop all this backsplash. Also, because this barn is built up a little bit, there are a few places that have gaps in them. This is the way it was built in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And so these normally will stack right here and form this perfect little barrier, but we have the chickens that live inside, and they push it over, and when they're about yay big, they like to come in and out, in and out. I would love to give them a little bit of shrubs and some dense foliage to kind of hide in. So normally we're gonna keep our babies inside, but on warm days when I let them out to wander and start to free range, I like for them to be able to hide from hawks or whatever else is out here. So, are you ready to look at the beautiful shrubs I picked out? For those of you who are still getting to know me, I'm Christine, and in the plant world I have two great loves. The first is hydrangeas, and the second is hibiscus. So when I showed up at Creekside a couple days ago, Jenny said, I know of two plants that you don't have yet, but that you need, and I said, take my money. So this is a hibiscus that I definitely don't have. This is a lilac hibiscus that's called Lilac Crush. I love purple in the garden. It might be my favorite color. And this one, a lot of my hibiscus are gonna grow in a very round shape, but this is gonna be more vertical than it is wide. So I love the idea of this being a focal point right here at the corner of the barn. It's gonna soften the corner of this landscape a bit. And I don't have to worry about the spacing too much because it is not going to crowd anything else. Also, what I love about this being a vertical, like a columnar lilac, is that it is not going to block the view, but simply enhance it. Now, in this landscape, my goal obviously is to add some color, but I want to add color and texture and beauty without compromising and hiding the beautiful wood of this barn. So I have chosen a couple of things that are going to be a shape that is conducive to that idea. Every landscape needs some type of evergreen element. So let me show you my evergreen. This is a sunshine ligustrum. There are a lot of really beautiful, deep, dark, emerald green shrubs out there, but I knew that a dark green would get a little bit lost with all this grass that we have in through here. So if you were to come from our driveway and see this right here, you would get a huge contrast, not only from the green grass, but also from this dark barn. So I have 3 of these sunshine ligustrums. These can get quite tall. They look their best between 2 and 4 feet. So that's where I'm going to keep them. And you can shape them however you want. So this year we could put them in a pyramid shape. Next year it could be in a round ball, just whatever you, or you could square them off if you had a very formal English looking garden. I might let them get a little wild and woolly because this is a farm. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. But in these 3, I'm going to bring a little bit of balance into this garden. I tend to be a little bit flighty when it comes to picking my plants, and you run the risk of having a very unbalanced or maybe an unorganized, chaotic looking garden. So if I can pepper in groups of 3, if I can pepper in similar colors and make it very balanced from side to side, then it brings a little bit of order to chaos. Now at this point you may be wondering, what is our plan with the landscape fabric and with this hibiscus sitting out in the middle of the grass? Ideally I don't want to use landscape fabric. I think it disrupts a little bit of the natural harmony between the earth, the sea, the sky, but I do need to kill this grass. Hold on, my chickens are fighting. They weren't fighting, they were just a little nervous. There was a kitty cat in the chicken coop. What were you doing? Huh? Ideally, I don't want to use landscape fabric, but it can serve a purpose even for a short period of time. Luckily, because we are putting down pine straw instead of mulch, it'll be very easy for us to check and see if the grass is dead here in a little bit. Simply move the pine straw off, pick up this landscape fabric, and put the pine straw back. Now, the biggest reason that I think it's a waste to leave landscape fabric in this place is because naturally dirt and dust and debris is going to settle on top of your landscape fabric. You're still going to be pulling weeds in about a year. So it's not worth it to me. It interrupts what happens with the worms in the soil and all that. And so I would rather have a natural landscape and suppress weeds with the amount of mulch that I put on top rather than trying something, a stopgap, which is this landscape fabric. So in all other places we can spray a clove oil based weed killer, and that'll take care of the grass there. Now for the flower show, come look at these hydrangeas. I am so in love with these hydrangeas. Fun story, I didn't buy my first shrub until a couple of years ago because we lived in a huge city overseas where we had no garden space except for my balcony, and the first shrub I bought was hydrangeas. They were limelights. But this, the pufferfish, has such airy and spaced out blooms that it just makes it look so frilly and very delicate, I think. And they are very close to my limelights, which I absolutely love. We have limelights that line the front of our house right now. So these are going to be the spotlight. Let me try to find the middle somewhere. At its largest, this pufferfish will only get 3 to 5 feet tall and wide. We'll see. I've seen some hydrangeas get bigger than what the tag says. But even so, there will be a sizable gap in between these 2 shrubs. Normally, part of me wants to absolutely cram so many plants into here because I always say life is too short for minimum spacing, and I really do love a full looking landscape, but I have not grown anything here before, and so I want a chance to observe my light, my rain, just the natural we have these little pockets, like micro ecosystems all over our yard. So before I make a decision on a lot more plants, I kind of need to observe this space. So I love giving the advice to gardeners, like grow with your space, start with your bones, and then later when you have a lot of confidence over what this area has a need for, like sunlight, water, and all of that, then you can confidently go in and say, I definitely think, you know, daisies would be ideal for here, or kufia, or whatever it may be. Also, I could choose to fill this place with annuals. Also, if you can't make up your mind, but you know you have space, this is a great opportunity for annuals, because you can pop in purple this year, or you could try red next year, or you could do something soft like yellow. And then every year you have like a new creative outlet to play with. So for now, a little gap here, because I don't know what I want. And I'm gonna get to know my space really well. So of course, I need balance in my landscape. So I have 2 of these, and they're going to go for a little mirror effect. Pop these right here. I'm gonna be a little funny about my spacing here, especially when it comes to how far away they are from this structure. I definitely don't want anything to touch this structure because it's wood. This is old wood. I definitely don't want to risk touching the wood, but even if it was up against siding, if you have a house that you are building right here and then you put a shrub right up next to it, that shrub is not going to grow perfectly round. It's going to grow into like a little orb, because that's where its stem is. So from the center of the plant, it's just going to go round, and it looks so awkward and like really smushed it together. So I don't want any half domes over here. I just want a full size plant. So give it the space it needs. If you don't have this much depth, choose a smaller plant. That would be my advice. Now, I love my guara. They may look small now, but they will become quite full and mighty. This is a perennial, and it looks like the place where fairies are born, and I adore it. So these are going to go right here for now. Wouldn't it be pretty if like every gap in between here was filled with guara? Jenny pointed something out to me. This is an evergreen honeysuckle that is really prolific, and it has a beautiful deep green color. I was going to put it over here on a trellis, but I do think that after it outgrows its trellis, it would start to climb on the wood. But it could also start to climb on our fence over here, and the goats would just eat it. And this is not goat food, this is Christine food. So I think I'm going to put this on the side of our porch so that it can climb up the railing, so we can smell it from where we're sitting on the porch swing. So love this, but I'm going to save it for a different landscape. So with that explanation out of the way, it's time to start planting. Really careful about how high my root ball sits, especially because we're gardening in red clay. There's a lot of water that comes off of this roof right here. Unless we were to add a gutter, we're going to have a lot of water here during rainfall. Now luckily for me, both ligustrums and hydrangeas love water, so that's ideally a good plant for this situation. But sometimes our North Carolina winters are so incredibly wet that if you were to accidentally plant your root ball below the soil surface, you're going to get water that becomes stagnant and standing. So my stem is just an inch above the regular soil line, and that is to prevent a concave effect where water can settle and rot the stem. Now, Obviously hydrangeas are gonna be deciduous. They're gonna be sticks in the winter. It is easy to kind of forget about your deciduous or your herbaceous perennials, but it's important to remember that the roots have to stay alive over the winter, and so too much water is a bad thing. And so one easy way to fix that is simply by not allowing it to be cratered into the earth when you plant it. Oh, those are my two roosters. Hey, that's Jerry. I am pretty sure I'm going to get some comments about gardening without gloves on. But did you know that there have been studies linked to the microbes in the soil that we come into contact while gardening and our mental health? There have been connections made. So I am earthing, if any of you want to know. You want to know something wild about the hardy hibiscus? This thing can grow at a rate of 3 inches per day. So even though it's one of the last shrubs or perennials to break its dormancy in spring, it puts on growth so quickly. Well, we're done, and the pine straw is down. Now, of course, a couple of rains are gonna help that pine straw to settle, or the cats will lay on it and settle it down for us, but I love it so much. It looks even prettier than what I had envisioned in my mind. So let's take a look at it now that it's all finished.